Tonight, who to blame for the massive hack on BC? The province points the finger at a foreign actor.
It's important that government takes this seriously.
What telltale sign led experts to a culprit?
Putting up temporary structures is not allowed on the University of Calgary campuses.
Clearing out the Calgary encampment. Police in riot gear go in full force. The job boom no one expected, and what it means for interest rates. A tip-off about another pro-women's team that could come to Canada.
Hopefully there will be good news.
And the dazzling display of a solar storm.
It would be amazing.
The geomagnetic marvel illuminating Canadian skies.
CTV National News with Heather Butts. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. British Columbia confirms it was most likely hacked by a foreign government or someone acting for one. The province isn't naming the country or what they were after, and there was no ransom demand. But officials say the multi-pronged attack lasted for weeks, was sophisticated, and hackers covered their tracks. Here's CTV's Penny Daflos with what more we know.
Only a handful of people behind these walls have known British Columbia's government systems have been under siege for the past month.
We have reason to believe that the attack was a state or state-sponsored actor was involved in these cyber attacks.
The first was April 10th, and the Premier was briefed a week later. 2 more attacks followed, and Cabinet was notified after the latest attack on Sunday.
There has not been an interruption to government operations or services for British Columbians. As we've also said, there is no evidence at this time that sensitive information has been compromised.
Many institutions get hit by them on a regular basis, but something on this scale, of this nature, with this level of sophistication, is deeply concerning.
Microsoft is the province's service provider and has been involved with the response. The company has been in the spotlight in recent months for hacks exposing their own weaknesses that may have put U.S. government agencies at risk. A complex investigation is now underway into what happened here, including who got in and what they had access to.
Once that's been done, there really is, I think, moral, if not legal pressure to inform affected parties as soon as possible.
There's a lot of reasons to keep it secret, especially from a national security perspective, and I would not think that's unusual.
But multiple experts are calling on government to provide more information as soon as they can, including whether our security measures are up to snuff.
Is the province really doing enough to safeguard our information here?
The province is doing a significant amount of work in this area. We have a staff within citizen services of 76 whose sole focus is on security of government information systems.
Criminal has the advantage here in many ways, right? Because you've been caught off guard and you're trying to figure out the extent of the damage.
It could easily take months to figure that out as government and its data-rich networks remain prime targets. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Vancouver.
The United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly backed a Palestinian bid for full membership today. The resolution recognizes the Palestinians as qualified to join and extends rights and privileges. It was adopted with 143 votes in favor, 25 abstentions, including Canada, and 9 against, including the U.S. and Israel. And the Biden administration says it is, quote, reasonable to assess that U.S. weapons have been used by Israel in Gaza in ways that are inconsistent with international humanitarian law. The State Department report says definitive evidence is hard to find because of the conditions of the war. Still, it is a strong criticism from the White House, which has repeatedly raised concerns about the death toll in the territory. More than 34,000 people have been killed since October. That death toll has triggered campus protests. Police in riot gear moved in on the one at the University of Calgary, arresting some demonstrators. In Montreal, McGill University now seeking a court injunction to dismantle the encampment on its property. CTV Jean-Vier Beauchemin reports.
Today, protesters say the University of Calgary poured fuel on a fire that had not even started. Last night, just hours after tents went up on campus, this was the scene.
If you want us to be safe, put away your guns!
Police in riot gear used flashbangs and cleared pro-Palestinian students and supporters.
If you're not going to leave, the police are going to escalate and they're going to leave you. And that's what happened yesterday.
No one was hurt, say police, and 5 people were arrested.
I'm glad that the University of Calgary made the decision that they did. There are appropriate ways to peacefully protest, but they have said no camping.
The quick police crackdown in stark contrast to the approach several other Canadian universities had taken so far. But at McGill, where the protest is nearing its 3-week mark, the university said tonight it is seeking a court order, requiring protesters dismantle the encampment and authorizing police to enforce that. When? That isn't clear for now.
We've seen institutions take these very violent, repressive tactics, and we've seen the students rise back up again against them. This isn't a movement that can be stopped so easily.
There is a police car, but it's nearly a block away from here. A very different situation from what unfolded in Calgary. Universities have faced a tough balancing act, allowing the protesters' voices to be heard and protecting all students. Some Jewish students at McGill say the university has failed them, that it's past time for the encampments to come down.
Now it's like a fortress, and they've completely barricaded themselves in there. And I'm afraid that once the police go in, that it's going to turn into chaos.
McGill says it will continue talks with protesters, still hoping for what it calls a peaceful and timely resolution of this occupation. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Some surprising news on the employment front. 90,000 new jobs were added in April. That blew way past estimates. It is the largest monthly increase since January 2023. The strong showing has some economists rethinking rate cuts from the Bank of Canada. CTV's Jeremy Sharon reports.
It's a big boost that came as a surprise for many.
It's a little bit crude, but it made me think of the Eagles song, Hotel California, you just can't kill the beast.
An April jobs report that shows a strengthening economy, reporting the largest job gains in over a year, adding 5 times what was expected.
Everybody obviously wants to have a job, and it's great the employment's up, but the Bank of Canada, with the Government of Canada, is trying to reattain this 2% inflation target. And you do have to cool the economy to a certain extent.
90,000 new jobs were added in April, but unemployment held at 6.1%. Experts say there's more to the numbers than meets the eye.
When Canada's population is growing like it is now, it takes a ton of jobs for just the job market to keep pace with that size of the labor force. And so that was kind of the story of what we saw in April.
Still, it's expected the positive job data could prompt the Bank of Canada to hold off on cutting rates from their current 23-year high of 5%.
It looks very much like a toss-up. I think market pricing is pretty much about 50-50. We're still expecting a June rate cut, but I mean, let's be honest, it very easily could be pushed out to July. And so I think if anything, this employment report maybe gives the Bank of Canada a little bit of hesitancy.
Wage growth slowed in April, a metric the bank watches closely for its effect on inflation, which remains above the target of 2%. But the question is whether it's slowed enough to outweigh those strong labor force gains.
And of course, only the Bank of Canada gets to make that decision. The highly anticipated next rate announcement is scheduled for June 5th. Morella?
Yep, eagerly awaited, Jeremy. Thank you. You need a well-paying job to help buy groceries these days, but when considering cost, geography could be a key factor. We did a cross-country price check of grocery staples, and CTV's Heather Wright has results.
Supply and demand, the cost of fuel, the time of year, all factors that impact the price we pay for groceries. So too does your postal code.
I'm from Windsor, so the prices here are a little bit more expensive, but astronomical no matter where you go.
Where you live is either costing or saving you money at the grocery store. But how big is the difference? Our reporters grabbed a cart and went shopping in Halifax, Montreal, Toronto, Regina, Calgary, and Vancouver. With a grocery list of items, a pound of butter, a dozen eggs, along with meat, rice, apples, and tomatoes. We visited 2 different stores per city to get a sense of what customers are paying. In this unscientific survey, the lowest bill was in Calgary, with an average cost of $58.87 to buy those 7 items. Regina was the highest at $74.17, Vancouver not far behind at $73.07. Halifax, Montreal, and Toronto were all between $63 and $68.
We're all prisoners of our own geography.
Sylvain Charlebois is a professor in food policy and distribution and says cities like Toronto and Montreal tend to have more competition, which can help keep prices lower, while other places require a lot of transportation to get food on grocery store shelves.
Distances are a killer when it comes to like transportation, energy costs. As soon as gas goes up, you know that the grocery store you'll get dinged. That's basically how it works.
While food prices are still increasing, they aren't going up just as quickly as they once were. And some experts predict we might actually start to see them going down by fall. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Canadian Blood Services is apologizing to the LGBTQ2S+ community for discriminating against them.
We regret that for many years the former policy also contributed to discrimination, homophobia, transphobia, and HIV stigma.
The old policy prevented all sexually active men who had sex with other men from donating blood and plasma. Now all donors are asked the same questions about sexual behavior, regardless of sexual orientation. Health officials in Newfoundland are sounding the alarm over a public outbreak of whooping cough. The province is seeing its largest spike in cases in 10 years. And as CTV's Sarah Plowman reports, it comes on the heels of a surge of cases and deaths in Europe.
An old disease is making a comeback. Whooping cough is on the rise in Newfoundland, 42 cases since February.
So we haven't seen such a number of cases in the last 10 years for sure, but it's not unique.
Most patients are children. Schools alerted parents.
I've known about this outbreak since I got a memo from my child's school on the 29th of April.
Whooping cough is highly contagious, caused by bacteria affecting airways and lungs, spread through a sneeze or cough. There's an ongoing outbreak in Nunavut, Alberta, and hundreds of cases in Quebec so far this year. Europe has seen a surge. In England, 5 children have died.
We normally see whooping cough coming in cycles, and during the pandemic we didn't have any cycles because people weren't mixing, so we're really getting a catch-up now.
Whooping cough can cause coughing fits, even choking or vomiting. If untreated, it could last months.
Really, really scary to think that your little one's going through that.
In infants, it's especially dangerous.
It affects the bronchial tree. And what happens is the baby's bronchial trees are so tiny, if they get inflamed, those cells swell up and they begin to close that breathing tube.
Doctors say the disease is preventable through vaccines.
And it's extremely important that kids are up to date on their vaccines because this can be a pretty dangerous infection. And kids will feel miserable with it. It's an awful, awful cough.
Doctors say whooping cough can be treated effectively with antibiotics. As for the Newfoundland outbreak, a testing clinic has been set up for anybody who's both been in contact with someone with the disease and has symptoms. Morella.
Sarah Plowman, thank you. We have some dramatic video from a dash cam of terrifying moments on a northern Ontario highway. A red transport truck towing 2 trailers abruptly caught fire. It triggered a chain reaction of near misses. Several trucks were sent swerving into oncoming traffic. Some vehicles got forced off the road. Luckily, no one was seriously injured. The massive success of women's professional hockey seems to be opening new doors. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow is dropping hints about the first ever WNBA team in Canada. CTV Siobhan Morris has details.
Tia Nurse with a 3 in the corner.
It was a taste of things to come. A WNBA preseason game in Toronto last year, with pleas from the stands to bring a team here. That wish appears to be coming true, with multiple reports Toronto will be home to the WNBA's first Canadian team.
2026 is when we're expected to hopefully see a franchise. I'm gonna speak it like it's already here because I like to manifest.
The mayor hints that something is coming.
It's time. So hopefully there will be good news soon. And I can't wait for that to happen.
Toronto's been embracing its new professional women's hockey team. A star on that team says Toronto has shown time and time again it's a sports-loving city.
With the WNBA, I was at the game last year and it was absolutely electric the entire week leading up to the game. So I couldn't be more excited to have the chance to witness women's professional basketball.
Future fans are ready to get loud.
Awesome, amazing. Yes, we really need that. I think it's a time that women actually have some time to showcase their talent.
I think it's great. I think we should have more women's professional sports teams. They're good role models for our daughters.
Showing women's sports can be a viable career.
This gives more room and more opportunity for players to have a home, for players to get paid, for players to eventually not have to go overseas.
Officially, this is not a slam dunk yet, with a WNBA spokesperson telling CTV News, "We continue to engage in productive conversations with interested ownership groups in a number of markets, and the granting of any expansion team requires a vote of the WNBA and NBA Board of Governors, leaving the ball in the league's court, with fans hoping they'll take a chance traveling to the Six." Siobhan Morris, CTV News, Toronto.
Coming up, the star witness set to take the stand at Donald Trump's hush money trial.
Next week that I'm on, and kind of looking forward to it.
The face-off with a former fixer. Plus, a solar spectacle lighting up night skies nationwide. Dangerous storms have been slamming the U.S. all week. Today, Florida got hit, and at least one person has been killed. Uprooted trees crushed into homes and knocked out power. Mangled metal and debris littered the streets.
I looked out the window, and there's just white.
What was that? What just happened?
There goes my big pine tree in the backyard.
A state of emergency has been declared for the worst hit parts of the southern state. It has been a stormy week for Donald Trump. He had to sit through the testimony of an adult film star who alleges the two had an affair. Stormy Daniels is done, but next week, an ally turned adversary will take the stand. Michael Cohen is Trump's former fixer and could be the linchpin for the prosecution's case. CTV's Joy Malbin reports.
Mr. Michael Cohen.
He is the prosecution's star witness, Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, who once said he'd take a bullet for Trump. Now Cohen will take the witness stand Monday. It's expected he'll try to implicate his old boss in a crime. But first, the judge, Juan Merchan, issued a stern warning to the prosecution. Get Cohen to stop taunting Trump on social media and stop talking about the trial.
Next week that I'm on, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. Trump 2024, more like Trump 20 to 24 years.
Trump is furious. Unlike Cohen, he is restricted by a gag order, not allowed to attack witnesses, unable, he says, to defend himself.
There is no gag order to Michael Cohen. They can say whatever they want, but I'm not allowed to say anything about anybody.
Visibly angry after sitting through days of salacious testimony from adult film actress Stormy Daniels, she testified she was paid $130,000 hush money to keep her quiet so she couldn't derail Trump's campaign before voters went to the polls in the 2016 election. The deal to cover it up hatched, according to the prosecution, between President Trump and his then lawyer, Michael Cohen. Cohen went to jail for it, along with tax fraud and lying under oath. Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records.
It's related to campaign interference, and it's related to improper use of money going into a presidential campaign. And so Michael's got the receipts. They're smoking gun receipts.
The prosecution is relying on Cohen to connect the dots, and it may all come down to which man does the jury believe? Joy Malbin, CTV News, Washington.
Straight ahead, a royal update. A word from the prince about Kate's cancer treatment. Prince William has offered a rare public comment about the Princess of Wales.
Can I ask how Princess Kate?
The prince was asked about his wife as he toured a hospital in England. The princess is getting preventative chemotherapy after cancer was found during abdominal surgery earlier this year. A trespasser had to be taken to hospital after getting into it with Drake's security team. The man is alleged to have tried to enter the rap star's property on Thursday. It is the second time this week someone has tried to get near Drake's mansion in Toronto. There was a swarm of unusual activity outside a shopping mall near Toronto. A bunch of bees caused quite the buzz around one particular car in the lot. There were an estimated 20,000 of them on the trunk of the car. Luckily, a local beekeeper came to the rescue. He literally brushed the bees into a carrying case and took them away. After the break, an unbelievable nighttime experience. The northern lights visible in the south. You may be able to catch the effects of a geomagnetic storm just by stepping outside tonight. When particles ejected from the sun reach the earth, they light up the sky. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth reports.
Billions of particles from the sun have mixed with the Earth's magnetic field. It's called a coronal mass ejection,
causing aurora borealis northern lights for most of North America.
This space weather prediction map highlights the size of the massive geomagnetic storm. CTV science and technology specialist Dan Riskin has advice for optimal viewing of the northern lights.
If you're really hoping that you can take this in, try to get away from the big city, try to get out into a rural area where you can look at the sky.
The best time to view the aurora borealis in Canada, mid-evening Friday until early Saturday morning.
It's really difficult for our eyes to pick up dim light, but if you've got something like a cell phone camera that can take a 1 or 2 second exposure, you'll be able to pick up some color.
This is a rare event. The last time our country had a geomagnetic storm forecasted of this magnitude was 20 years ago.
The sun has a cycle. It's an 11-year cycle where every 11 or so years it's at its peak.
It's a dream scenario for Northern Lights watchers like the scientific community and photographers.
Everything about photography is all physics and light capturing. If it's natural, that's all the better.
Matt Robinson shot this time-lapse in April 2023 and is prepared to capture more images this weekend.
So this one could be overhead. It's very likely that you'll see it overhead rather than the horizon.
While the northern lights are expected to be visible mid-evening Friday until early Saturday morning, Fields says because of the size of this geomagnetic storm, Saturday night viewing is also a strong possibility. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Gotta see it. That's a wrap on the day. Thanks for sharing your time. I'm Morella Fernandez. For all of us here at CTV National News, thanks for watching. Good night.